Hello and welcome to a special one-off episode talking about the Seattle Freeze. My name's Ray Kurtz. I'm a part of the Unfreeze Seattle project that we have been promoting for the past 2 weeks, and today I'm really here to talk about what the Seattle Freeze truly is, as well as kind of our personal thoughts about it, as well as using some interviews that we got with people on the streets of Tacoma about the Seattle Freeze and their personal opinions on it. Now, a lot of our promotional stuff has been about talking about what the Seattle Freeze is. But in reality, the Seattle Freeze is, according to widely held belief, and this is from Wikipedia, that the Seattle Freeze is essentially the idea of having a difficulty of making new friends in Seattle, Washington. And this could be for reasons like key traits that are specified on Wikipedia as the factors of early Nordic and Asian immigrants being very reserved during the early ages of Seattle, the emotional effects of the climate, which I can agree can affect emotions sometimes, or, I'm gonna put this in big quotes right here, the region's history of independent-minded pioneers. Now, I don't know how to feel about that last one, because I feel like a lot of the people who have blown up here in Seattle, especially in the later years, especially in the past half century, have been very out there. Like, the factor that Amazon has blown up so much, the factor that we have companies like Nintendo of America who have absolutely blown up. You have Valve, the people who are behind Steam and who have released a bunch of hardware for people to use for gaming. You have PopCap, a bunch of gaming studios around here that are very big about that. One of the main factors that really has to be put into what the Seattle Freeze is simply that Seattle is essentially a commuter city. Because a lot of the people who work in Seattle don't really live in Seattle. They take the train, or they drive from Bellevue, or they drive from the north, or they drive from the south. Essentially, a lot of the people who go in and out of Seattle aren't people who actually live in Seattle. They're just there for a job, or they're there just to take a quick visit. And in that sense, you can kind of see that the Seattle Freeze is less about being friendly and more about the factor that there's not a lot of people who actually stay in Seattle. But again, really depending on what kind of evidence you pull into this, the Seattle Freeze can be up for grabs for whatever idea you might think it is. And going on top of that, we did ask some people on the streets of Tacoma about what they might think the Seattle Freeze is and also their personal opinions about it. Take a listen.
Yeah, the Seattle Freeze is kind of like you're being ignored whenever you're like walking down the street, like if you need help with something, and it's like sort of a semi-hostile, but like passive-aggressive kind of attitude.
Yeah, kind of just cold and distant.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't know that's
Hence
what it
the
was.
freeze idea, which, I don't know. Me personally, I wouldn't call it the Seattle Freeze. It's more like a Pacific Northwest freeze. It's kind of a common trend around the area, so it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Have you guys heard about this before? The Seattle
No.
Freeze? Where are you guys from originally?
I'm from upstate New York.
Okay.
I'm from Georgia.
What about you?
I'm from everywhere.
Love that. Do you feel like there's been a difference between being kind of like New York and other places versus here? Or is that just like a term you heard about?
Okay, so before I came over here to eat up Tacoma, I went on the Reddit and I was like, yo, what the hell is the Seattle Freeze thing?
Right? You had to look it
so
up.
I was like, hopefully this doesn't happen. And then when I came over here to Tacoma, and then recently I've been starting taking classes in Seattle, that's been like more and more false, like the more I've gotten to like be around the campus.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe that's just me being biased towards being only on the campus and then occasionally
You
going
also are
between the
really
two.
good at making friends, though.
I don't know about that.
Do you feel like the majority of friends have been local or just people from other states or countries?
It's kind of a mix of two, actually.
Okay.
It's interesting because like the Pacific Northwest itself is just very diverse, especially due to like a lot of the tech industries just kind of booming up in this area.
Yeah.
So that brings in a whole slew of people from around the world to, get their education here to hopefully, fingers crossed, get a job at one of those booming tech places.
Now, what's our group's stance on the Seattle Freeze? Well, the Seattle Freeze for us is untrue. And that's why we say our whole tagline is Unfreeze Seattle. Because a lot of the ideas is it's simply people not really wanting to step out of their comfort zones because of the belief that a lot of people are unfriendly in Seattle. A lot of the factor is simply that a lot of people just have this mindset that the Seattle freeze is real. And I feel like this is untrue. Now, it could also be people still having the effects of COVID-19 and the factor that a lot of us really forgot how to interact with other people. In this new day and age, where people are getting out more, people are starting to get back to where the world was before COVID, it's easier to understand that the Seattle freeze might actually be more of a myth than an actual truth. And for us, we definitely feel like it's some kind of myth. We definitely feel that there are people who are still out there, who are still friendly. And I have personal stories of going up to Seattle to meet people and to be friendly around people. People still have hobbies and people still visit Seattle to hang out with other people. You got PAX West, you got concerts, you got events. Just look at the factor of all the effects that were happening with the protests, the Black Lives Matter protests that were happening in Seattle back in 2020. Seattle was known for one of the biggest protests because of the DMZ, the demilitarized zone. And just on that factor alone, it really seems like a lot of people are more closer together than they ever were before. So, my stance on the Seattle freeze is that the Seattle freeze is very much a myth. And I hope that we can make this myth disappear as the mist goes in an early morning. My name's Ray Kurtz. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you around Seattle.